Good morning to everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here. We did send out the agenda last week. So of course, we're going to look at item number 2, any additions or deletions to the agenda. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think this is I'm sorry, addition or deletion, but we have a new staff attorney, so I'm not sure he knows everybody. If we could fit in introductions before we get too deep into the agenda.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry about that.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Nope.
Yeah. I'm Daniel Guerra, co-chair. I'm with the NAACP in Windham County. I've been on the subcommittee for about almost a year. I love working with everybody. I learned so much, and I'm just always happy to be here. And I will pass it off to Kelly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Pupor. Hi, Chris. I think we've encountered each other in other things long ago, but I'm now with the Human Rights Commission. I'm an attorney investigator, and I'm happy to help wherever makes sense. So I'll pass it to Kim.
Morning, Chris. I represent the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs on this committee. I'll pass it to Karen.
Hi, Chris. Good to see you again. As you know, I'm Karen Transcard-Scott. I work at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, where my job is as the co-executive director. Been on this committee for years and years, and I'm still really excited about the work that happens here. Thanks. I'm going to pass it to Glenn.
Hi, Chris. Glenn Boyd, Department of Corrections. I'm district manager of the Burlington Probation and Parole Office, and I'll pass it to Susanna.
Hello, good morning. I'm Susanna Davis, the executive director over at the Office of Racial Equity. Nice to meet you. And I'm going to send it to, I don't know who hasn't spoken yet. Kelly, did you?
I think everyone's gone.
Good.
Chris, hi, you know me.
You look familiar. So I guess let me say welcome. Thank you for letting me join in. And it's a pleasure to meet those of you who I've never met before. It's a pleasure to see all of you who I've seen before. My name is Chris Burkett. I'm the new Associate General Counsel here for the Vermont Police Academy and for the VCJC. And I'm the new Kim McManus.
With facial hair. Yeah, I could never pull that off. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you got it on the top, so.
Well, yeah, welcome, Chris. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much for being here this morning. And thanks, Lisa, for that reminder. Item 2, just addition or deletions to the agenda. Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to item number 3, approval of meeting minutes for our last meeting, which was on June 9th, 2025. As always in our agenda, there's a link if you want to double check. And at this moment, I'd like to approve the minutes. Will someone entertain a motion to accept these minutes from June 9th?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted from our meeting on June 9th.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Glenn. The motion is now on the floor. Do we have any changes, any amendments to the minutes? Okay, I'm not hearing any. All right. So let's move to vote to accept these minutes. All in favor, please just raise your hand or say aye.
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 Excellent. Thank you. Any who oppose, please raise your hand and say aye or aye. Great. I'm hearing none. Therefore, the minutes or that motion passes. Thank you very much. Our next item 4, is public comment. Yet again, though, I don't think I'm seeing any members from the public. Okay. None. All right. Wow, we are moving along. Let's now move to item number 5. I believe this is going to be Kim, our FIP policy review. Believe it or not, we are getting started on that.
Thanks, Daniel. For any subcommittee members who were not present at the last council meeting, we did review with the council the obligation for the policy review per statute, and we checked in with the council to make sure that the council wanted our subcommittee to do the review or steer the review, I should say, and present the council with our findings and our suggestions as far as any updates that are needed prior to January 1, 2026. And the council gave us a thumbs up to proceed. And so we have this on the agenda today to discuss a few things. One, how we would like to schedule the next few meetings to begin this review, and who to reach out to as part of this review. We discussed at our last meeting that we are required to consult with the Human Rights Commission and the Attorney General, but we also discussed at the last meeting the need for public input and to reach out to other stakeholders who we know would want, well, who we know and maybe who we think we might know would want to have an opportunity to provide feedback. So I had a few thoughts in mind of how we could move. This again is not going to be a very long process. It's going to be a fairly truncated review compared to the most recent review done in leading up to 2024. So I had some thoughts, but I wanted to first open it up to the subcommittee. If there were any initial thoughts from members of how you would like to see this review move forward. All right, let me lay my thoughts out and then see, that might be easier to see what folks think about that. So what we had talked about at the council and also at our last subcommittee was if we could use our August meeting and our September meeting as a subcommittee to provide the opportunity for organizations and individuals to provide us feedback. We could then potentially be ready to summarize our findings and present that to the council at the October meeting. That's our ideal schedule. We'll see how it goes. We may need a little bit more time than that, but we then have the November backstop to present that to the council, and that gives the council the November and then the December meeting to approve and again meet our obligation. So one thought I had was from this meeting, the chairs of the committee, Daniel and I, could send out a letter to our to the AGO and the Human Rights Commission to request feedback that we need to consult with them, just remind them of the obligation, attach the policy. They know the policy really well. I have a feeling if there is any feedback, it's sort of already ready to go, and that we could give them to our next meeting. So sort of a very short timeline for them. But again, this isn't new information for either of those organizations to digest. So I'm comfortable with that idea, but that's something I'd like the subcommittee to push back on if necessary, but that we invite HRC and AGO to our August meeting. And then for the public and stakeholders, we reserve the September meeting for their feedback, giving them more time to review and discuss internally any feedback, but also today figure out who it is we'd want to reach out to invite them to that September meeting, and how we'd want to craft that letter, saying that we're doing this review and that we would like to have them provide feedback. That was my initial thought to get this moving and get it going. Thoughts on that timeline? Does that feel too short, too rushed?
Kim, I think that's a great timeline. And again, as I've said so many times before, when I joined, I was at the very tail end of that. I know it was such an arduous process. One other group, though, that does come to mind that I don't know if we'd want to reach out to. I remember we got an email from Vermont Law and Graduate School, a student group, I think it was. They're, I think, pretty critical of what the work we did. And I know we're not looking to do a major overhaul, but I don't know if we want to let that student group know that this is happening. But that's just one group that came to my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be afraid to send it out to any group. I mean, I think we should send it out to whoever comes to mind. It's important. And yes, I'd have to look back. I don't think it was a student group. There may have been a student group, but there was a professor who wrote a letter, and I'd have to look back in the record, but there was an opinion, and it was coming out of how we were interpreting the statute. So it was the ACLU and I can't remember who it was at the school, but yes, I think that's a great idea. I know they have a clinic at the school. It might have been associated with the immigration clinic, but yeah, that's the Vermont Law School. I mean, as far as other folks to reach out to, absolutely the folks that we reached out to in the past, Migrant Justice, ACLU, this Vermont Law School is a great idea, Daniel. Each of us as subcommittee members should absolutely be reaching out to our organizations, right, to collect feedback. Other groups, Daniel, probably, I mean, you'd be able to reach out to your chapter of the NAACP. Is there should we probably reach out to all the chapters?
I think so. Yeah, there's at least the Rutland branch, and I thought there might be a student group at one of the colleges, which I can double check on. But yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Castleton University.
That's it. And Lisa, I think your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to go back to Vermont Law Graduate School. When was that letter? Was that before me? I don't recall that.
It was
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to
I'm guessing
think about it.
was, if it wasn't a student group, it was probably the immigration clinic and possibly maybe Brett Stokes, who leads that. So I'm also happy to I know Brett, and I'm happy to reach out to him. I also know he's super busy representing a lot of folks right now who are dealing with ICE. That's it. Thanks.
And Karen, I think I see your hand up too.
Thank you, Daniel. I think that this is going to be a really rich conversation, and I'm very interested in this review in terms of what we know that will be coming from the federal government. And so I'm really grateful for this idea of getting input. I think one of the, like looking back at the process that we engaged in to get to where we are, I think we should just be thoughtful about making sure that the folks we're engaging understand what their role is. Because ultimately the VCJC approves the policy. And I think we want to be we don't want to be giving, especially activist groups, the idea that if we spent a lot of time last time talking about provisions that were never going to pass, because the Attorney General's office, they were telling us that the provisions that folks were really advocating for were not going to comport with law. So I just hope we can be thoughtful. And I'm just thinking about if there's any targeted, probably the wrong verb to use, law enforcement leaders that we would want to also seek input from. The law enforcement community gets the opportunity to weigh in through the VCJC, but also the last time we did this, the chiefs and the sheriffs took the proposed policy to their constituents and they had lots of conversations about it. And I thought that was really useful. I thought that was really helpful because it was the place where some of the bugs got worked out and the questions got answered, like within that community. And, you know, the fact that we have this pretty solid FIP policy in place in this state with only a few, I mean, I can only think of one law enforcement leader that has come out against it. That's pretty remarkable. I mean, we haven't had that kind of cooperation with things like protection order policies. And this is a much more controversial policy than that. So I don't know who those leaders might be, but I just think it might make sense to bring in folks. You know, the last time we did this, we worked closely with Jennifer Frank. Of course, she's in Florida now. But if we can think about law enforcement leaders to talk to who, you know, are interested in this policy and who would be good ambassadors to their constituencies, I think that'd be great.
Absolutely. As you were speaking, Karen, I wrote down, you know, through the Chiefs Association, and then the Sheriff's Association, and then VSP. And then I think we can definitely think of a few others who are, you know, may not have that leadership role, but at least we can know again and very specifically ask, like, you know, send this to your group, like solicit feedback, like now is the time, so that nobody feels like they didn't have an opportunity to weigh in prior to this going before the council again. Absolutely. Other groups or individuals, because again, we're not, 2 months, September feels a million years away, except we all know it's not. So I definitely would like to reach out to folks this week so that people feel like they really have 60 days, you know, outside of the AGO and Human Rights Commission. Other groups.
Chief has his hand up.
Sorry, and Susanna, sorry. Chris?
Yeah.
Or, sorry.
I'll let Susanna go first, and I'll ask my question after.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I'm just thinking that if we want people to have 60 days, depending on how much outreach we're looking to do, some are not going to have the same number of the same amount of time. For example, you know, if we're thinking about translating the notice that we're accepting comments on this, then that's going to create lead time. I would budget 2 weeks turnaround time for any translated materials, which means at that point now we're giving people maybe a month and a half at the most. And then, of course, if anybody needs interpreters to be able to communicate with this group to provide that feedback, then that's an added thing that we need to coordinate and cover the cost of. I'm thinking like ASL, for example. I also, you know, I don't know if we also want to solicit feedback through a web form, maybe that might help to what am I saying? That might help streamline things. So if people are not able to appear at subcommittee meetings or other spaces where we're holding it, then we can have a Microsoft form up where people can do it in their own time, which helps if we're doing things during business hours and people can't take time off work for that kind of thing, or what have you. So I think that's another option that allows us to get feedback in writing, and we just tell them, here's the deadline. So there's a couple of options. I also know that MS forms can be translated. They can be done using robots. As you know, that's not always accurate. So if we want to maybe develop a set of questions and have those translated, then we can create a form that has those different languages. So that's another layer of this workflow that will impact how much time the public has in reality.
If I could just chime in for a second. I appreciate Kim's thoroughness and thought process of getting to where we need to go. Boy, I don't know how the heck you're ever going to get this in 2 months time frame. I guess my first question would be, what are the parameters, or are there parameters around the feedback that you're going to be soliciting from these stakeholder groups? Because I can imagine it's just going to go all over the place if those parameters aren't put in place as to what type of feedback you're looking for, or specific to just uh, problems with the policy that people have seen develop. For what it's worth to this group, we at the council level have not had one complaint yet of a violation of the FIP policy, which is good news. Doesn't mean that we can't get one tomorrow, but I think what we're seeing is a lot of concern, rightfully so, with where you see the federal government going. And I just would be cautious about us conflating that process with this FIP review.
Yeah, I think, Chris, to that end, it's for this subcommittee to decide those parameters of how we want to frame this review. And this dovetails nicely with what Karen was saying of, sort of being, again, framing it to be, we need to do this review. We would like feedback, but we can only do so much with certain feedback. And, again, citing that we have state and federal law that puts a box around what this policy can do at this time. How we'd like to word that, I think we, as a group, need to decide that. And I just want to make one comment. Susanna, thank you so much for saying the forms piece. I'd written down on my note here to make sure that there was an opportunity to give written and verbal feedback, because absolutely, like, not everybody wants to show up to a meeting, but to have another way to collect that information. I think the web form is great. And then also adding in, however we put this out there, if people don't like to use the form, if they'd want to write an email, a summary, giving all those options of how they would like to give that information. I definitely had not thought about the translation piece, so thank you for saying that. And I'll need to check in with Lisa. Hopefully she can help with helping think through how to go about that piece. But yes, but as far as like the parameters for the review, Chris, yeah, it's for this group to decide.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to suggest any parameters. I just wanted to make sure if you were setting parameters around what that information is, that it was clear to the stakeholders that you're reaching out to, just so that it doesn't go into areas that then you have to respond to that may not be in the realm of what you're looking feedback on.
Well, and just one thought, I see Kelly's hand up, but one thought, and I think Daniel and I and Lisa were talking about this when we were setting up this meeting. I do think there needs to be that framework, but I also think we shouldn't be, I'm not worried about how far and wide the comments might be, because I think all of them are value to the council. Our job is to hear that, is to organize that, put that together, and it may not be, there may be an update that's appropriate for this year. There may be hey, this was something we heard a lot. And maybe we don't suggest as a subcommittee that it needs to be an update needs to happen for 2026. But boy, this was mentioned so many times. We do need to, we need to take time to look at this, and maybe this is an update for the next go around. So I guess I wouldn't want to limit some of the feedback, at least, you know what I mean? Like, I hear what you're saying, but I think we'd be able to put all that feedback into some different categories of, what can be done now, what needs to be done later, what's just not part of this policy at all, like what, wow, that's another problem but for the council to hear all of that, just to know.
Perhaps some of my comments are just based on other committee work that I see and spinning. I don't doubt that this committee has the wherewithal and the drive to get where you want to go. It's an aggressive timeline, and I'm sure you'll do justice by everybody that gives you feedback.
Well, and it's the reality of our timeline. I mean, again, we do have a little room. We can push it back, we can push it back so that we're presenting to the council in November and give more time there. We can kind of see what the initial reaction is when we seek, like, we have some wiggle room there. But again, like Chris, I think this subcommittee in comments, I don't know if you were at our last meeting, this subcommittee definitely voiced like, this is not the previous review. Like we don't have a year and a half to review. We also don't have a directive from the council, whereas that last group did, of like, hey, we need you all to look at, right, the immigration piece, and like there was a chunk of work given to that subcommittee to work on. We don't have that as part of this review. We may get some information from this review that then leads to future work, but I'm under no, yeah, we're not going to be able to do the work that the subcommittee did last time in the next 2 or 3 months, but we need to do a review, not the same type of review as before. Kelly, sorry, I was jabbering away while you were waiting.
No worries. No, it was helpful. So I guess I'm just trying to understand also. So I might be a little bit more blunt than others on the subcommittee, but so my sense is that we're feeling like there isn't a glaring area where there needs to be a change, right? We're kind of just, are we just gonna open it up to see if there's comment about what the community thinks should be added or deleted or whatnot? I mean, I guess I'm wondering, do people in the committee right now feel like there needs to be something changed? Because I'm not feeling that way. I don't know if other people are.
My sense, Kelly, is there could be some edits that I would, put into the category of like technical changes. Like there's a few sentences there that are, when we read them, folks are always like, wait, what? Like there's a double negative here. Like what happens? Like I could see law enforcement potentially, being like, this sub part drives me crazy. Like, is there an easy fix to this? Like I could see that. I could also see, again, folks being like, we don't think this went far enough. We want X, Y, and Z. My sense is from all those comments, like I don't think there's going to be an appetite for the council to take on a substantive change, realistically, just given all the work that was done. But there could be a few updates that are not like massively changing the policy. That's my gut feeling, but I don't know till we open it up.
So in the comment about there haven't been any complaints about the policy going too far, or when you said that there weren't any complaints about the policy, can you explain a little bit more about that?
Do you mean when Chris said there were no complaints? He was
Yes.
referring to professional conduct complaints. Is that right, Chris? Yeah.
Right.
That nobody's like we haven't had a complaint filed saying that somebody violated the policy.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Kim. I mean, it's good for us to hear feedback, consider it. I guess I'm not thinking of a better word other than I don't want it to turn into a free-for-all where people are, you know, coming up with all kinds of stuff that we can't address, but I'm sure that we would note down anything appropriate, that anything that's not in our purview, we would handle. I guess are we just I think that makes sense to me. I guess my only concern is if there's some area that we know about already that the public is or somebody's going to bring up that we maybe should get ahead of, or you know, I'm still new to this subcommittee. So sorry, Karen, go ahead.
No, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead and finish your thought.
I guess I just appreciate like you know, is there something we want to do with this? Is, you know, from my review of it, it seems very immigration heavy, but that's the times that we're living in. I don't know. I guess, is there a feeling from the group that something needs to change, or there's we're hearing from our respective areas that there's big areas we want to look at?
I mean, I'm not hearing that, but I wouldn't hear that from my constituency. But one of the things that sits in my mind on this policy is, you know, the policy is explicit in telling law enforcement officers that they can only cooperate with ICE in situations where there's a criminal issue. And in the months since we adopted this policy and today, I feel like that line is a little blurrier, given that the federal government believes that they are picking up people who are criminals. And so, I mean, it may not be that that's an issue now, but I think that we might want to anticipate that that could be an issue where ICE is saying, yeah, this person's a criminal, you know, because 20 years ago they had a traffic violation. So I'm being smart about that. I'm sorry. I just think we might want to anticipate, you know, one of the questions years ago with the FIP policy was around federal funding to law enforcement agencies in our state, and would we write a policy that would preclude law enforcement agencies from being able to access those funds? That was during the first Trump administration. We're not hearing that so much right now, but we could hear that, and I think we would just have to revisit it, and we'd have to come to a conclusion that it might or might not be worth it. I mean, in my world, we're faced with this question all the time since January 21st: is do we comply, or do we take the money that pays the salaries of the people in our organization that are doing really good work? So this is the conundrum of our modern times. But I do think that for me, the question, you know, I'm glad we haven't seen anything in professional regulation, any violations of this policy. And as ICE gets more and more active in our state, I wonder how we determine if it's a civil or criminal situation.
Daniel, if I can suggest, because I know we want to have time for the resource toolkit today to move that forward. If it's okay with the subcommittee, if Daniel and I can draft 2 letters to start with, one to the AGO and HRC, and then one to our other stakeholders and public in general. And we can draft an email soliciting feedback and send that to the subcommittee to look at, to just get other eyes on it, to make, you know, see if we frame the question in a way that you think is productive to move us forward, and to not mess up open meeting law. We can't co-create the document, but if you could just individually send us feedback, we could get those letters moving, and I could then work with Lisa about translating the one letter, and that would just get us moving forward if that works for folks, and the invitation for AGO and HRC, at least for our next meeting. Would that be okay next steps?
I think that sounds great, Kim.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for all the helpful feedback for the FIP policy review. I'm looking at our agenda, and item number 6 is our resource toolkit. I believe we might have mentioned this briefly last time. And since our last meeting, Kim and Lisa and I have spent some time working on this. If you two don't mind it, maybe I'll just jump in, and please feel free to add if you hear something or you want to add. But we want to create a toolkit, digital. We're going to figure it out whether it's like a kind of a doc, if it's going to be on the website. This summer, I have a little summer project for law enforcement. We want to gather resources that will help law enforcement continue to learn. So we spent some time in our last meeting, and we've cooked up this idea that each subcommittee member will choose a category, and I'll go over the categories in a moment. Choose a category, do just a little research, and then report back at our next meeting in August with what they found. The 4 categories that Lisa, Kim, and I came up with are trauma-informed, language access, implicit bias, and accessibility. And we can put that in the chat too if that's helpful. And of course, any subcommittee member, though, maybe there's something we missed or something else you would like to research. Maybe you have something you're passionate about. That's totally fine too. And yeah, again, we just kind of want to get like a lot of different things can be included in this. I think, Kim, you mentioned even like a video clip. You saw something recently about detectives really making some pretty major mistakes. Maybe it's a short article. But again, the idea is just kind of a fun little summer project. And again, you can maybe tell that I'm an educator, but just a little learning this summer, and that we can all come back next month with a piece. And then Lisa, Kim, and I will kind of work on that document, craft it, get it ready for law enforcement. And again, this is not like you're doing something wrong or we're, busy. This is just, again, we're here to help law enforcement, and how can we always continue to learn and improve? And then, yeah, Lisa, Kim, is there something maybe you want to add, or maybe I missed? I'm only on my second cup of tea.
No, I think you summarized where we're heading, but also, yeah, putting it out to the group that ideally we'd like everyone to leave this meeting and go looking, go find something that you either know about or you're willing to spend, a little bit of time doing some Google research to see if you can find something that you think would be helpful to bring back. It's unfortunate we don't have Greg and Wes on the call because they're probably the ones who can easily grab that, but we'll email them and ask them, like, this is kind of the homework we'd like the subcommittee to go do. But we also, Daniel, wanted to, open it up for conversation of if folks had other, categories that you sort of wanted, or just even ideas you had right now. We had already talked about a few ideas the last meeting. But yeah, we're hoping everyone can go out, grab a few things that they think would be helpful or interesting, and then bring them all back so we can all sift through them and see. And again, under the frame of resources for fair and impartial policing. Yeah. Oh, de-escalation, conflict management. Great category. Yeah. So this is still very much in the brainstorming phase. Daniel, Lisa, and I were just trying to think, how do we keep this moving forward with sort of little homework assignments in between meetings?
Yeah, maybe any other categories we might have missed. Thank you so much, Susanna. I just saw that in the chat. Or again, as Kim has also said, just maybe something you're really passionate about. Maybe you have a coworker or somebody who's done some fantastic work that you can share. And again, I want to emphasize, I don't think it has to be super long. This isn't, we're not like it's a college course or something like that. Short article, short video that you have found to be helpful, maybe something in your department or again, somebody you work with. Yeah, Karen.
I really appreciate this opportunity. There's so many resources that are floating through my mind right now. I'm gonna want to go back and take a look at them with the lens of a law enforcement. Because I'm thinking about like Temple Kuhn's Habits of White Supremacy, and it's written really targeting nonprofit organizations. It would look completely different with a law enforcement lens.
Yeah, and that's exactly the work, Karen, that we're hoping committee members will do, is sort of those things that are popping in your brain to go back, look at them, think about, would this be helpful to a law enforcement officer to click through, read through, watch, maybe, maybe not. And, even if you're on the fence, like, yeah, gather it, put it on a list, and we'll bring them back for the next meeting. Are folks willing and interested in doing this? Great.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
And what do we think, Lisa and Kim, maybe moving forward with this? Maybe I'm just thinking out loud, folks, you can email me or Kim later today with what you want to choose or some point this week.
Or, yeah, I don't know, would it help maybe, Lisa, would it be possible to create a folder to send out and folks could just start dropping in things? So then,
That's
like
kind of
less-
what I was thinking. I could create some sort of placeholder for all this information and, folders of the categories, and then in each folder, just create another folder with your name and whatever things you want to add to it.
yeah, I think that would be great. And then this way we don't have to worry about, just the organization piece, make it as easy as possible for folks to be able to just drag and drop into a folder, and then one that we can all access later.
Okay.
I think Karen has a hand up.
Sorry, I'm awful chatty this meeting. I don't know what you mean, Chris, in the chat with your comment. Bias not reviewed meant to be helpful.
It was just another topic that I was thinking of. I mean, I think that when you talk about data collection and bias, I think that's oftentimes specific to law enforcement. There is bias that they recognize, but it's not really reviewed, such as in traffic stops where you are taking into account an elderly driver or somebody's lack of driving properly, right? That's a bias that in order to not write a ticket to somebody, not writing a ticket to somebody that might not have enough money to pay the fine that DMV associates with it. There are intentional biases that I think law enforcement exhibits with good intention that may not ever be looked at or be understood when it comes time to data collection.
Got it.
Thank you, Director. Chris, do we have any other questions or comments about this toolkit? Okay, hearing none. Looking at our agenda, unless again, if we have any other questions or comments, I believe we're at item 7, motion to adjourn. Will someone please entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Karen. Can I please have a second motion or second to the motion?
Second.
Excellent. Thank you, Glenn. As always, it's great to see you folks. Look forward to continuing to work with you. I hope you have an awesome Monday, and I'll be in touch with you, Kim and Lisa, very soon. See you next time.
Thanks,
Have a great-
everybody.
Thank you.
Great week.
Thank
Thanks.
you.